I found out my sister almost died giving birth while I was sipping overpriced wine under a fake olive tree in a Greek taverna, pretending to enjoy my dream vacation. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped the glass, shattered it right on the cobblestone floor. And still, I didn't turn my phone back on, because by then the decision was already made. It wasn't just a vacation anymore. It was a silent rebellion. C, 3 weeks earlier, was standing in a glass-walled conference room shaped like a damn fish tank, listening to our CEO, Clint. Yes, Clint, like a failed cowboy actor, announced to the company we're a family here. He smiled like that was some sacred oath, a holy mantra, right after slashing parental leave and canceling mental health stipends to stay lean. And yet I still I asked, nicely. My sister's due next month. She's high risk. Complications with the placenta. I need to be there. It's been on the calendar since February. Clint leaned back, laced his Rolex-adorned wrists behind his head, and said, "We need continuity. It's a critical quarter. Surely someone else can be with her." "Someone else isn't me," I said. My voice didn't shake, but my jaw locked so tight I tasted blood. Then came the kicker. The one-liner he probably thought was profound. Sometimes being part of a family means making sacrifices. Silence afterward was a void that swallowed my last ounce of loyalty. I nodded like a good little tech daughter, walked out, and booked a ticket to Greece that same night. Full fare, no refund, no plan B. But here's the part no one at that polished startup knew. Not Clint, not HR, not any of those Patagonia vest-wearing yes-men who called me the glue of the back-end team when their apps didn't break. I was the glue. Product launch they were hyping like a moon landing. I wrote the infrastructure for it, designed the sync logic, and I told them twice that the migration needed a manual rollback safety. They ignored it, said it was too negative for investor decks. So I smiled, documented everything, and made sure they only understood how to deploy, not recover. I didn't sabotage anything. I just left the oven on low and walked out the front door. When I landed in Santorini and my sister was already in labor, I did what Clint taught me. I made a sacrifice. I left the work family behind. I shut off my notifications, switched on airplane mode, and became unreachable for the first time in 7 years. And while I floated in a volcanic spring, sipping ouzo and staring at a sky I couldn't code, back home in the glass box, the server alarm started screaming. But no one knew, not yet, because the one person who could stop it was sipping in silence, halfway across the world, letting the match burn down to her fingers. The first email subject line that slipped through was titled Urgent, System Anomaly Need Clarity, and it hit my inbox with a faint digital ding, the only one I allowed through. I glanced at it, barely, then turned my phone back over and dipped it in the hotel safe like it was radioactive. Let them stew. At the time my sister came out of surgery, baby healthy, her not quite, I'd gone 72 hours without touching a laptop. That was longer than my last 3 relationships combined. I visited the hospital in a sundress I hadn't worn since college and held her hand while she whispered, "I'm glad you're here." And all I could think about was how close I came to missing it. How close Clint came to stealing this. Back home, though, I knew the mask was cracking. It started with little things. My friend Nate, front-end lead and unofficial gossip mule, sent me one single message on Signal. No emojis, no punctuation. "Are you watching this from Greece?" I didn't respond. But that was the moment I knew something ruptured. That system I warned them about, the new streamlined data relay pipeline, it collapsed like wet cardboard during their big Friday launch. The issue wasn't the crash. It was what crashed with it. Every active client dashboard lit up with bad data. Wrong billing. Canceled transactions. One hospital's internal server interpreted our call as an overwrite command. They lost patient logs going back 3 months. 3. Entire departments started threatening lawsuits. And I knew exactly what failed. C. We'd flagged a concurrency loop that could, in extremely rare cases, cause a cascading null failure. It was like predicting an earthquake from a tremor. I told them the fix. Clint said it's a corner case. I said it's an exposed jugular. He said noted. Now they were bleeding out in real time, and the only person with the tourniquet was eating spanakopita with her recovering sister and watching the Aegean Sea turn molten at sunset. But the real knife twist, I'd left instructions. I told them, in writing, what needed to happen if something went wrong. I just didn't explain it in baby language for the code-illiterate exec who kept calling memory leaks data hiccups. They had everything they needed. They just didn't listen. And now, back at HQ, panic had replaced productivity. My Slack status, vacation, not a suggestion, became a meme in our dev channel. Someone printed it and taped it to Clint's office door. I should have felt guilt, but instead, I felt calm, like standing on the edge of a burning city holding a cup of tea. Because when you scream fire for months and no one grabs a hose, you don't owe them your lungs. You owe them silence. They tried calling me 26 times in one night. Different numbers. Blocked. Clint's personal assistant. Even his wife's phone at one point, I only knew because she left a voicemail sobbing, "He's not sleeping. He says he can't breathe." I poured another glass of wine and muted everything but the waves. At 3:13 a.m., a final text squeaked through, probably whitelisted by mistake. "We need you. Please, it's bad," from Nate. The same Nate who once told me I needed to smile more in meetings. I didn't reply. I couldn't. Not because I didn't want to help, but because I'd warned them. It wasn't just code they'd ignored. It was the cost of treating people like plugins. Me paint the full picture. 2 months before this, they ran an employee appreciation day. Balloons, Costco cupcakes, paper trophies. I got most reliable, and they gave me a mug shaped like a laptop that said, 404, vacation not found. Everyone laughed. I did too. But that mug now sat in the bottom of the Aegean, where I threw it off the boat during a snorkeling tour. Meanwhile, back at the startup that called itself a family, things were unraveling like a cheap cardigan. The servers had triggered recursive error logs, creating internal do-s conditions. Their in-house SRE tried to hot patch it live. Instead, he corrupted the rollback tables. And then the audit logs, oh, the sweet irony, overwrote themselves. Poof. No way to trace what went wrong. No way to isolate which clients had been affected first. Investors got wind. Their pet unicorn was now a 3-legged donkey limping through lawsuits. Clint called an emergency Zoom meeting with the board. Someone leaked a screenshot. His tie was crooked. His eyes bloodshot. He looked like he'd aged a decade. But what made me laugh, really laugh, was what was written on the whiteboard behind him. Find her. Fix this, her. Not the team, not the company, just me. Suddenly, the girl who asked for 3 days off to hold her sister's hand in a hospital bed wasn't replaceable anymore. She was essential. She was oxygen. And for once in my life, I let it burn. No cape, no rescue, no return flight. The longer I stayed gone, the worse it got. A client from Sweden posted a LinkedIn story about corporate arrogance and tagged our company with the hashtag #recklessbydesign. It trended. Valuation dropped 14% in 2 days. HR sent me a generic email titled "Hope you're enjoying your time off," with a smiling sun emoji and a PDF attached titled "Return to Work Discussion Points." I didn't open it. Instead, I walked barefoot down a lava beach, listened to my sister's baby hiccup in her arms, and told myself something I hadn't believed in years. They don't get to own me just because they paid me. This wasn't a breakdown. This was liberation. 3 days into the chaos, they tried to bribe me, disguised it as a wellness incentive. Email from Clint's executive assistant, subject line, "Let's reset together herb inside," was a 2-paragraph Hallmark poem about balance, and an offer. If I could hop on a call to help them troubleshoot a few minor snags, they'd wire me a $20,000 retention bonus and throw in a wellness retreat of my choosing. A yoga retreat, because nothing screams mental recovery like downward dogging while your CEO sweats over quarterly losses. I laughed so hard I woke the baby. She didn't cry, just blinked up at me like she knew. Like even fresh out of the womb, she understood manipulation when she smelled it. The next day, things escalated. My friend Jess, HR liaison turned burnout escapee, called me from a burner. Said she was quitting. They're throwing interns at the code base like sandbags. One guy cried after 20 minutes. Clint had a panic attack in the restroom. I think he's been sleeping in his Tesla. I didn't say much, just listened while she ranted. They're trying to rewrite your module from scratch, but no one understands how the checksum validator works. Did you really use custom logic instead of the built-in parser? I smiled. Clint said my approach was too complex. She exhaled slowly. Jesus, this is beautiful. But then came the turn. One moment that pulled the cigarette burn right across my spine. They're blaming you now, she said. Officially? What? Clint told the board you rushed delivery, and your poor documentation was to blame. They're claiming you took time off knowing it would break. I stood frozen on the hotel balcony, phone trembling in my hand. He's trying to bury you, she whispered. And if this ends up in court, you know he'll twist it. That was the moment the anger stopped being abstract, stopped being about code and calendars, and ignored vacation requests. It became war. He didn't just try to erase my work, he was rewriting the story. And I don't take kindly to being turned into a villain in someone else's redemption arc. So I opened my laptop for the first time that week. Not to help, not to debug, but to document. I had everything: emails, Slack threads, archived Zoom recordings where Clint smirked and waved off my warnings. Once joked, if it breaks, we'll blame Amazon, and laughed like the devil was in on it. Now, that devil had a witness. I drafted a timeline, built a clean report, screenshots, dates, my original launch memo with all the risk outlined in red, which Clint had marked as too much doom, light in tone. I zipped it all in a folder and gave it a name that would make his blood pressure spike. In case I'm thrown under the bus zip, then I uploaded it to a private drive. Shared the link with one person, Jess. No threat, no note, just the quiet knowledge that if they wanted a villain, I'd become the kind that writes her own ending. By day 5, the vultures started circling. Not clients, not investors, lawyers. One of them, some shiny-headed corporate fixer with general counsel in his signature, sent me a cold little ice cube of a message. Per clause 6.2 of your employment agreement, failure to provide emergency support during designated blackout windows may constitute willful neglect. Willful neglect. As if I'd abandoned a toddler on the freeway. As if I hadn't spent the last 5 years being the company's invisible backbone, while Clint did tequila shots with VCs in rooftop pools. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded it to my own attorney. Yes, I had one. Had since the last reorg, when I realized promotions were just new collars on the same leash. Then I opened a Word doc. Top of the page, the culture of silence, how we're a family became a weapon. And I began to write, not code, not documentation, but truth. About the time Clint made an intern cry in front of the whole dev team and told her, stress builds character. About the time I worked 16-hour shifts, patching a breach that turned out to be the CTO's own VPN credentials left on a public Trello board. About the exit interviews that mysteriously vanished. About the woman in QA who reported harassment and got reassigned to a non-collaborative internal role in the basement server closet. I wrote it all. Names, dates, receipts. And when I got tired, I switched tabs and watched the company's public trust pilot score spiral from 4.9 to 2.3. One angry user wrote, I trusted this platform with our customer data. Now we're being told it was a minor hiccup. I just had to refund $40K in double charges. Who the hell built this system? I smiled. It wasn't pride. It wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. They wanted to outsource responsibility, but retain control. Wanted to burn the rope and blame the climber. And now they were desperate. By day 6, Clint finally cracked. He messaged me directly on LinkedIn of all places. No assistance, no legalese, just raw, typo-ridden panic. Look, I fed up. We need you, not just for the code, for optics. You're the only one people trust. Please, name your number. I read it. Twice. Then took a screenshot. Then blocked him. Because here's the thing Clint never understood about family. Real families don't demand loyalty and then gaslight you when things go sideways. Real families don't punish you for showing up for the ones who actually matter. Real families don't weaponize your silence. So I poured myself a drink, toasted the setting sun, and clicked open the folder I'd labeled nuclear. Because the time for silence was over. And the next part wouldn't be private. I didn't leak it to the press. I leaked it to someone better. A tech influencer named Corey, blue hair, zero chill, and 200,000 followers who treat her like a modern Joan of Arc with Wi-Fi. She once dismantled a crypto scam in 6 tweets and made a CEO cry on Clubhouse. We met at a Women in Dev Summit last year, bonded over lukewarm hummus and shared trauma. She DM'd me last month saying, if you ever burn it down, please let me bring the marshmallows. I sent her the zip, didn't say a word. Just dropped the link with the file name, here's your fuel. Within 4 hours, she posted a thread that opened like this. Ever wonder what happens when a company calls itself a family, ignores every safety warning, denies emergency leave to a senior engineer, then blames her when their system tanks? Buckle up. It went nuclear. The screenshots. The timeline. Clint's too much doom. Lighten tone Slack reply next to a red-bordered warning marked critical client data at risk. The mug. The mug got its own meme. 404. Vacation not found became a rallying cry for every burned-out dev, every silenced QA analyst, every woman who'd ever been told to smile more in daily stand-ups. Within 6 hours, I was trending. Not by name, thank God. I'd stripped all identifiers, but by story. Ghost engineer who watched a company implode while sipping cocktails from a cliffside villa. Reddit ran wild. TikTok had edits with slow piano music and screen recordings of my timeline. Someone even animated Clint as a weasel in a Patagonia vest screaming, "Find her," while fires exploded in the background. It was glorious, but it was also terrifying, because I knew the hammer was coming. Sure enough, the next day, my inbox lit up with legal threats: defamation, breach of confidentiality, malicious intent, all bluster, all bark, but I was ready, because what they didn't know, I'd kept one final receipt, a hidden folder on our shared drive one Clint forgot to delete during his purge. Inside, a voice memo he accidentally uploaded during a strategy call. Clint's voice, clear as crystal: "If it blows up, we'll just spin it. Blame the back-end girl. She's invisible enough." He laughed. So did 2 other execs. They moved on to planning the launch party. Invisible enough. That line burned a hole in my spine, so I sent it to my lawyer. And we drafted a statement, clean, factual, devastating. Filed a retaliation claim, submitted documentation, and gave the board 48 hours to respond before I'd take it all to the Department of Labor, the tech press, and anywhere else that cared about the truth. Their silence was louder than any lawsuit. They didn't respond. Clint made one last mistake. He called me, personally. "Look," he started, his voice already cracking. "We both know this got out of hand." I didn't say a word. Just listened. "You're not that kind of person," he pleaded. "You're not cruel, right?" I finally replied. Cold, even. "No, Clint. I'm exactly the kind of person you created." Then I hung up and let the world finish what I started. The board moved fast after that. Not out of principle, of survival. 2 directors resigned within 24 hours. The CFO retired early. Clint, somehow, was still clinging on like a moldy Band-Aid in a rainstorm, but even he could see the headlines forming. The company's Slack was a morgue, dead channels, nervous emojis, a funeral of silence broken only by the occasional stunned reaction to another tweet going viral. Then it happened. Corey, my digital avenging angel, dropped the bomb. 12-minute exposé video. Clean, chronological, ruthless. She layered the screenshots over a string quartet version of Toxic by Britney Spears and ended with a side-by-side of Clint's where a family speech and his leaked voice memo calling me invisible enough. She didn't name me. Didn't have to. Everyone knew. And suddenly, I was getting DMs from strangers, from engineers at other companies, from recruiters, from whistleblowers, even from 2 of Clint's former assistants, one of whom sent me a private spreadsheet titled "Clint Lies Chronological XLSX." But the message that stopped me cold came from one of our biggest former clients, a private medical tech group that pulled out after the crash. "We just wanted to say thank you. We had no idea you tried to warn them. We're so sorry you weren't listened to. We hope you're okay." That cracked something open in me. Not pride, not validation, grief. Grief for all the late nights I gave them. For all the birthdays missed, the therapy rescheduled, the headaches swallowed, the silence maintained, because that's just startup culture. They told me I was family, but real families don't gaslight you and then hand you the grenade when things go wrong. So I did the only thing that felt right. I went public, not flashy. No interviews, no viral thread. Just a Medium post. Quiet, personal, titled "Invisible Enough: The Truth Behind the Launch That Failed." It began with, "My name doesn't matter. You've seen my story already. But here's what you didn't see," and I told them everything. The denied leave, the ignored warnings, the mug, the callous jokes. The fact that I stayed silent to protect a team that never once protected me. No rage, no vengeance, just facts and finish lines. And when I clicked publish, I didn't shake. The next day, Clint was gone. Not stepping down, not restructuring. Fired. The statement read, "In light of recent revelations, we are parting ways effective immediately." No payout, no applause. Just a quiet exit for the man who once said I was too emotional to lead a team. And me? I sat on a rooftop bar watching the sunset wrap Santorini in gold and finally turned my phone back on. No notifications. No Slack, just peace and a new email. Subject: "We'd love to work with you. On your terms, from a competitor, with better funding. And a female CEO." I didn't reply right away. Not because I wasn't tempted, God, I was, but because for the first time in a decade, I didn't have to jump. No deadlines, no alerts. No sweaty-palmed Monday stand-ups asking me to explain why a deployment failed when they never read the notes. Instead, I watched my sister nap on the porch with her newborn curled on her chest, his tiny fist clutching her necklace like it was the only anchor that mattered. I watched waves hit black sand and realized I'd forgotten what silence felt like when it wasn't just the space between notifications. The war was over, and I didn't just survive it. I rewrote the ending. Clint's legacy now lived in viral memes, HR lawsuits, and a plummeting market valuation. My name, still not public. I was the ghost in the wires, woman who didn't come back when they screamed for her because they didn't deserve the rescue. And yet, something better came out of it. I started getting messages from junior devs, women, burned-out engineers, QA testers who were once too outspoken. They weren't asking for help, they were thanking me, not for the chaos, for showing them how to walk away. One message read, "I told my boss no today for the first time, and I didn't apologize. Another, your story made me leave a job that made me cry every Sunday. I start a new one next week. Full remote, full respect, that meant more than any retention bonus, more than the spa package, more than the $20K they dangled like a leash. Because when I finally did answer that competitor's email, I wrote just 4 words, I'll consider it. Later. Then I closed my laptop, not slammed, not with rage, just closed, because healing doesn't always look like revenge. Sometimes it looks like rest, like letting go of the wreckage without dragging it behind you for the next 1,000 miles. Clint will spend the rest of his career explaining what went wrong. I won't. I'll be on a beach. No Wi-Fi, no Slack, maybe writing code again. Maybe not, but either way, my phone's staying off. Appreciate you sticking around, you wise old rebels. Smash that subscribe button, or this fossil might just cause another epic fiasco.